Hey, Masters of the Universe fans. Got ToyGuru Neitlich here, the former brand manager for He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, or She-Ra and the Masters of the Universe, She-Ra and the Princess of Power. I'm making a She-Ra video. I haven't made too many She-Ra videos. Most of my videos on Masters of the Universe tend to focus on her twin brother, Adam, Prince of Eternia, otherwise known as He-Man. But today we're going to talk a little bit about She-Ra, because there's some interesting things happening with She-Ra. So let's do kind of a quick recap, right? We all know who She-Ra is, right? He-Man's twin sister from the Filmation series when we were kids. There was a whole bunch of action figures, or dolls, I guess, because they had rooted hair. And we were able to update quite a lot of these characters in the Masters of the Universe Classics line, the one that I brand managed while I was at Mattel. This line was like 2008 through, I guess, current, with the Snake Mountain shipping this year from Super 7. And, we even did a few different She-Ras in the line. We did not get to Starburst She-Ra, despite lots of fan requests for that one, and it's always still kind of that bridge too far, I guess, in my mind. I wish we were able to have gotten to. But, She-Ra wasn't limited to just classics. She also made appearances in the Club Grayskull, which was the Filmation look for action figures, reimagining, or imagining what an action figure would look like based on the 80s cartoon shows from Filmation, but in 6-inch, and then later on even in 5-inch scale that Super 7 did. Really cool stuff. She-Ra's had lots of figures over the years. She even had a new TV show, not just the Filmation one from when we were all kids, Princess of Power. This was now Princesses of Power, plural, and it was on Netflix. Ran a couple seasons, a bit more of an anime look. And back in the day, She-Ra was He-Man's sister, his twin sister, kind of like Luke and Leia, or, I don't know, I can't think of other twin superheroes. The Wonder Twins, maybe? I don't know. There's not too many twin superheroes out there. What about the Thundermans? There's one for you. All right, I know. You only know them if you have kids. So, back in the day, about 40% of the people buying Masters of the Universe toys were females, were girls, or more so were parents buying them for girls. And Mattel took notice of this, that for what was a boys' line, there was a larger than average female audience for He-Man toys, which they saw as really cool. And it was, this was 1984, 1985, and it was time for something new. Not only did they have to find a way to reimagine and reinvigorate the Masters of the Universe line with new villains, but they wanted to do something and take action on the fact that for a boys' line, it was selling to girls more so than your average boys' line, if you will. So the idea was, how can we craft a character that can be part of the Masters of the Universe line, but be more appealing to girls? Do we give that character, make her more like a doll? Do we give her shiny jewels embedded in her chest? Well, we should definitely include her in the show. And the idea of putting this character in the Filmation series actually spawned the idea of doing an entire spin-off show. Now, the other aspect of She-Ra's origin is her villain, Hordak, who was originally, as I said, everything for 85 needed to be new. They needed to find new ways to reinvigorate the line. And Hordak was created as a foil to Skeletor. His first appearance was in this picture book that was actually written by Tim Kilpin, who wrote some of the later mini-comics and then went on to be general manager of Mattel. He was actually the general manager that gave me my job, moved me from Hot Wheels to Action Play, when I made him the pitch for Masters of the Universe Classics and what became Matty Collector. So I owe a lot to Tim Kilpin. And he helped create the Horde. And in this comic book, the idea was to make a villain that could be a second villain to He-Man, but would also be a villain to Skeletor. So that it would kind of be like a three-way battle. And, like I said, this reinvigorates the line, gives it new characters and new reason for being and new reason to buy more characters for parents and kids. And so a whole bunch of Horde characters were added. And they had a lot of tooling, because this is when the line was just on fire and was outselling Hot Wheels and Barbie. So, let's give them tooling. And Hordak appeared, and this is important, we're going to return to this. He was on a Masters of the Universe card. He was issued as part of the He-Man line as a He-Man villain in 1985, along with the rest of the Horde. And they even expanded on the Horde in future years, adding more characters like Dragstore and Mosquitor and others, etc., Multibot. But this was kind of the first major sort of new blood to the line. It wasn't just He-Man versus Skeletor now. You had another faction. And, well, the girls group heard about what the boys were doing. The girls group mainly were the makers of Barbie, and they, weren't too thrilled with the fact that He-Man's outselling Barbie company-wide, but is also selling to their audience, girls. People can be very territorial, let's just say, and tend to work in kind of their silos where, the girls group's over here, the boys group is over here. Actually, the way the Mattel building works is a line down the center, and it's kind of like a sixth grade party. Boys and girls don't mix. And the girls group were kind of like, whoa, 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 you're going to make, a female character? No, not in my house. This is what we do over here on the girls' side. I don't know if it was actually divided girls and boys back at the Hawthorne building in the 80s, but it is in El Segundo now. It's really funny how there's literally a line down the center of the building with boys on one side and girls on the other. Not that boys don't work in the girls group and girls don't work in the boys group, but anyway, I'm off track. So She-Ra here. So design work is going for She-Ra, noting her mask in the original corrected way that got flipped upside down when girls in the testing group played with it. So they flipped it. But the girls group basically kind of absconded with the idea and said, look, if a doll is going to come out, it should be done by the girls group, not the boys group. And through, political maneuvering, they basically took control of the concept and the idea and pulled it away from the boys group, which originally developed the idea of doing a female Masters of the Universe character. And because they needed villains, and the boys group had just created this new set of villains in the form of Hordak and the Evil Horde, well, the girls group said, you know what, we'll just use those guys, because they're ready to go, and they've already been developed. As I said, Tim Kilpin did that storybook that way predated the Filmation series or the release of She-Ra. So the girls group essentially took control of the project. It was still, in heart and soul related to He-Man in the sense that She-Ra was He-Man's twin sister, and that was explained in the mini-comic that came with her. And in the original Secret of the Sword mini movie, well, I guess, movie, it was 5 episodes that were split up. He-Man and She-Ra met. They had their whole backstory about Adora being stolen when she was a child and brought to Etheria, and eventually she learns who she truly is, and He-Man and She-Ra team up and, take out the bad guys. All their sub-characters met up too. That was kind of the thing as well. Some of these clips actually I think are from the holiday special, but the whole point is there were multiple times they crossed over in the animated series. And that kind of brings us to today and how She-Ra and Hordak actually are treated sort of from a legal standpoint as far as brands. And a lot of this came from when the brand was owned by Classic Media. You can see my whole video about the ownership of Masters of the Universe for more information about the crazy trail of that. So looking at the material that Classic Media put out when it got ownership of the MOTU brand, you will notice that He-Man and She-Ra have their own boxes. In other words, they treated them as completely separate brands. And this is what basically instigated the separation of the IP and of their brands. They even, in their style guides that they would give out, She-Ra really got highlighted as completely her own thing. While absolutely in the content and the entertainment and the show and in the mini-comics, they met and they crossed over, because of the way the contracts were written when entertainment rights and Hallmark and Classic Media were basically sold to each other, She-Ra kind of got divided into her own brand, no longer part of Masters of the Universe. And that's why in the new Netflix show you don't see He-Man appearing, and it's just Adora and She-Ra and Catra and Bo and all of that, both in the animation and in the action figures. And there are kind of some odd rules that now apply to how these characters are handled, both in an entertainment standpoint and a toy standpoint. And that's actually kind of the point of what I'm making this video about. So I'll kind of break it down. So She-Ra can appear in a Masters of the Universe action figure line, like she did here as part of the 2000X line. She was a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, was kind of a retool of Teela, and this was the only way She-Ra appeared in the Mike Young 2000X style, was as this San Diego Comic-Con figure. Doing an action figure is somehow, and I don't know, what the actual legal line is, but She-Ra can appear as an action figure, but she can't appear in the entertainment. And Ian Richter even said this in the interview he did on He-Man.org, how they didn't have access to the She-Ra characters, and that's because She-Ra at this point was legally a different brand. Now, Hordak is a weird exception. While She-Ra can't appear in the animation, the Horde can, because the Horde were released on Masters of the Universe cardbacks in the 80s and were part of the Masters of the Universe toy line. So there's kind of a weird clause where the Horde can appear in She-Ra animation or He-Man animation. Anybody can be in a toy line for He-Man for Masters of the Universe, but She-Ra and her cast can't appear in entertainment with He-Man. Any entertainment with She-Ra has to be on its own, like the current Netflix show was just about She-Ra and had no relationship to He-Man. So that's why you'll see She-Ra show up on a Masters of the Universe card, and the rest of her cast, it's kind of like a little iffy. We got them into classics, and we did manage to do her entire 80s cast, every original character, not all the variants like Scratch and Sniff Catra and Starburst She-Ra, etc. But we got all the original characters in classics, which to me was a huge victory, including the Star Sisters, characters that never made it out. And, we tried to do She-Ra in some other lines too. There was a mini that got sculpted. And then I think because Mattel paid for the tooling, but never released it, the vendor wound up selling them on the black market. But that's a whole other story. But other toy lines where She-Ra appears, she doesn't appear with He-Man characters. And yeah, this is kind of erasing history and rewriting history. I get it, because when we grew up, we all were kids. He-Man and She-Ra were brother and sister, and they could appear in entertainment together and defeat evil together. But now in the new entertainment, not so much. She-Ra can't appear in entertainment that He-Man is in. It's kind of, you got to keep them separated, to quote the song. So while you're going to see entertainment for both brands, they are now, and I could be wrong, I want to state that I could be wrong about this stuff, but from my best understanding, they are now legally two different distinct brands, and they can't appear together for one reason or another. I know it seems odd because, the same companies own them both, but at this time, like a live action movie with She-Ra and He-Man teaming up is going to be, what I hear, very difficult to do. He-Man can be in the live action, and if they want to make a live action She-Ra movie, much like the Netflix show, that can happen, but entertainment is an issue. How we got the whole secondary cast into classics, well, let's just say classics was a very small line and kind of flew under the radar and didn't exactly have the scrutiny that a retail line would have. I don't know if we were quite, going by the book, getting all these characters in classics, but we got them out, and that was really cool. And I'm proud that we did. All right, I hope this clarified some of the issues of She-Ra's brand and IP and how it's sort of was once part of Masters of the Universe and kind of now isn't. If you have any other questions or comments, leave them below and I'll try to get answers to you. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for subscribing and giving a like.